This weekend could have been the weekend of weekends for the BYU football program had the college football playoff situation played out differently for the Cougars, and that's why I harbor concerns that BYU may not be fully ready for the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on the show. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On America's #1 sports podcast network. Today's show, we're going to talk about BYU and the Pop-Tarts Bowl and their readiness level. Coaches and players are saying one thing, but I've got concerns that, what they could have been doing this weekend may have them, a little down on their luck. We'll explain a little bit more momentarily. Then we're also going to talk BYU basketball. The Cougars take on Abilene Christian, and TNT's in town to broadcast this game of all games. We'll make heads and tails of that along with previewing the matchup. And we'll finish up today's show with some of your questions you sent in about BYU sports, as we often do on a Friday with our listener mailbag. All right. By the way, today's show brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Cash your NFL live bets all season long and do it with our friends over at FanDuel at FanDuel.com or on the FanDuel app. All right, so BYU's coaches, Kalani Sitake, Aaron Roderick, the players, they've all been speaking and saying, hey, we're ready for this game. Speaking of the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Georgia Tech, they talk about the fact that Georgia Tech is a really, really good team. And yes, Georgia Tech is very much a good team. They were at one point ranked in the top 10 in the country. It looked like for a long spell there that they were going to be a lock for the ACC title game and very well could have found themselves in the college football playoff. The situation that I harbor from the BYU side of things is this is the second straight year that BYU has found itself right there kind of on the cusp of being in the playoff, but ultimately being left out. And I'm wondering if, while they're speaking very positively and talking about the fact that we love football and all that different stuff that they're talking about, could they in their heart of hearts and in the back of their minds just be thinking, you know what, is it really worth it? Like we have put together, and this is me speaking as if I was a member of the football program. We have put together this year a resume that matched up with anybody ranked about 8, 9, 10 in that playoff committee room. And we, for whatever reason, got left out with really nothing but BS in terms of the explanations as to why. I think last year, BYU in their heart of hearts understood that losing to Kansas and then following up with a loss to Arizona State did their chances of making the playoff in. Losing to a sub-500 team, no matter how good Kansas was at the time, I think they understood, and they've kind of alluded to the fact that they understood that they screwed up. And there was a tacit understanding of, okay, we get why we missed out on the playoff in that circumstance, speaking of 2024. This year, however, BYU's resume, as I said, was fairly sterling. The only losses they have on their docket are to a team that is enjoying a first-round bye this weekend when it comes to the college football playoff, that being the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Everything that BYU endured this year, winning 11 games, playing in the Big 12 title game, and yes, absorbing 2 pretty monumental, tough losses to a really, really good Texas Tech team. But outside of that, handling their business and doing it in fairly significant fashion and still being left out on the playoff, I've got to wonder, are the BYU Cougars a little bit over it? And could it affect their play a week from now when they take on Georgia Tech in the Pop-Tarts Bowl? I don't want it to affect them. I'm going to be very clear about that. I just think about it from the prism of if I were on the cusp of achieving a goal, a lifelong goal for some of these players to play for a national championship, only to have this committee, which I think is a bunch of buffoons, that's beside the point, to have them essentially take it away from you, even though you essentially played by the rules, did exactly what apparently you were directed to do, and you still get left out, I think there's got to be a little bit of disappointment. And I hope the BYU's players and coaches can swallow that up, use it as internal motivation. I know Isaiah Glasker said earlier this week that they want to go out there and send a message to the playoff committee, but you did that last year in the Alamo Bowl. You did that very thing. And all these talking heads that had downgraded and said BYU wasn't worthy of the playoff, funny enough, after they smashed Colorado, we're like, ooh, maybe they should have been in the playoff field. Is that going to be that same conversation this year? And it's great and all to have people say, hey, this team was really, really good. They probably should have been in the playoff. That's great to hear that, but you actually want to be in the show. BYU, I think, absolutely wanted this weekend, speaking of tonight, with the first of the 4 first-round games and the triple header tomorrow, it didn't matter whether they were playing on the road or playing at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. They, in their heart of hearts, wanted dearly to be playing for a national championship and be playing in this playoff. No matter if they went one and done, they still were in the field. They got cast out and essentially frozen out by the playoff committee in favor of SEC teams, and it's disappointing. I'm still, from my vantage point, it doesn't make sense to me that the playoff committee can spew whatever garbage they want about BYU's supposed unworthiness, whereas propping up others using the very same metrics and, as I mentioned, BS to prop up other teams in other leagues. I'm looking at you, Alabama, in particular. It just doesn't make sense. And that's why I am concerned that a week from now, when BYU takes on Georgia Tech, that while, as I mentioned, they're putting on a brave face, I do wonder if the BYU football program, to a man, does harbor some resentment, some disappointment, and could that affect their overall preparation and ultimately their on-field play when they take the field down there in Orlando against Georgia Tech? If that does, well, that could obviously put a pall on this season, because losing that game would obviously have people thinking, okay, yeah, they were really down on themselves. But would you blame them in a way? I know this isn't going to be a popular segment. Be very clear. I'm ready for the YouTube comments to go off on this. But I also, it's a conversation that I think is worth having, and it's worth monitoring in the week leading up to this game, because BYU will make the trek to Orlando early next week. They're going to spend Christmas down there in Orlando. They'll do a lot of different team activities. As I understand it, they're going to spend a day at Disney World, another day at Universal Studios. I'm sure there'll be a service project, as Kalani Sitake has alluded to, and other opportunities to be in and around that community in Orlando. But also, they have to prepare for a football game, and I harbor some concern that for a second straight year of doing essentially everything you could to find yourself playing in the show, I guess is the best term to call it, the playoff, and to not make it, could that affect them? And could it ultimately cost them a game that you would otherwise like to have in your back pocket? We'll find out, but it's something to consider as we look ahead to game week beginning next Monday. All right, coming up next, BYU basketball in action tonight. They are expected to win this game. There's like a 99% chance that they win this game against Abilene Christian. So why in the world is TNT broadcasting this game? We'll talk about it and preview the matchup coming up next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. Now, this time of year, the holidays seem to always sneak up on us, and whether you're still putting together gifts, last-minute decor, or getting your home ready for your guests who inevitably are going to stop by, Wayfair has got you covered. Whether you're that quick room refresh, new bedding, the final seasonal touches to make sure everything looks great, Wayfair makes it easy to get what you need fast. Wayfair is your one-stop shop for everything home, decor, furniture, kitchen essentials, and gifts for every style and every budget, all of it delivered quickly and easily. It is easy to shop by style. You pick the pieces that actually fit your home instead of guessing and hoping that they fit. The items that you order will instantly refresh your space without a big project budget, and it's also perfect for gifting. They got guides, tons of options, and something for literally everybody on any type of budget. There's no massive delivery fees and no stress along the way. So get your last-minute hosting essentials, gifts for all your loved ones, and decor to celebrate the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, NFL Sundays are absolutely electric, and the best part is they move quickly. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel super exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it live. The best part of FanDuel is you can place your bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment throughout the NFL Sunday or anything beyond that, by the way. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or one of those monumental turnovers changes the complete look of or complexion of a game. The best part is live spreads and money lines adjust instantly with our friends at FanDuel. Player props update as guys heat up or cool down. You also can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility, and keeps you engaged top to bottom. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action all season long, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season with our friends over at FanDuel. As they like to say, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right. number of you are out there are what we like to call our everydayers who are supporting this podcast no matter what. And as always, thank you for being here, making it your first listen today. And also thank you for making the Locked On Network America's #1 sports podcast network. I want to remind you guys, if you're a true diehard Cougar fan, the Everyday All Access tier is built for you with our new Everydayer Club. You'll get one-on-one text access with myself, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount on the Locked On merch store. Head to lockedoncougars.supercast.com to join the Everydayer Club and unlock the All Access tier. You also can find the link to do that in the show notes below. All right, so BYU basketball is in action tonight, taking on Abilene Christian at the Marriott Center. And I'm looking forward to this matchup because I want to see more of what AJ Dybantsa can do. But I'm also in my head thinking, why is this game of all games one that TNT is bringing Grant Hill, Andy Katz, and Brian Anderson to Provo, Utah for? Because think about it. Abilene Christian, they're an okay program. They're 7-4 on the year, but their most recent game, they played at #1 Arizona, a Big 12 made of BYU's, and got absolutely demolished, 96-62. Now, they'd won 3 games going into that. They'd beaten some cool school named Jarvis Christian. They beat Pepperdine on the road, and they also beat New Mexico State. So some decent wins. But when they went up against a team that BYU aspires to be much like, speaking of Arizona, got absolutely demolished. BYU's chances in this game, they say it's supposed to be like a 90% chance, 99% chance of BYU winning this contest. So it makes me wonder, okay, what is TNT thinking with this game? Well, I think it comes down to the fact that the Big 12 has signed multiple TV rights partnerships with multiple networks for basketball. And TNT, much like I'm sure CBS Sports, etc., are looking for inventory. And that's why they're taking advantage of this opportunity to be in Provo. I think in their game prep mode, Brian Anderson, Grant Hill, Andy Katz, that trio who will broadcast this game, they are probably going to have a lot of storylines they're going to have to talk about. And they're probably in their game notes if and when this game gets out of control, because BYU is expected to run away with this one, much like they've done previously against both, who am I thinking of last game? It was Pacific. Yes, the walking bags of cash. Sorry. Your BYU walking bags of cash. Okay, I'll leave that joke alone. But looking at it, it's an opportunity for BYU to be on national television. And yes, while they should, in theory, demolish ACU in this game, it is also an opportunity for AJ Dybantsa and the rest of the BYU basketball program to kind of show what they're capable of. Richie Saunders, Rob Wright, you're on one of the biggest and most prominent cable networks out there, and it's a big opportunity to show what you're capable of. The other thing on it is that a good friend of ours on the podcast, Jordan Plater, sent this to me the other night, and he said this, hey, it's something we haven't talked about much about AJ Dybantsa, and he said this. He has played 136 minutes in the last 4+ games. He scored 107 points, has had 33 rebounds, 22 assists, and in the last 4.5 games, he has not had a single foul, speaking of AJ Dybantsa. And I think somebody from ESPN latched on to that because I saw this come out, I think, on Wednesday. This popped up from not ESPN, OptaStats. In the last 30 years, the only one D1 player has ever had over his full career a 4-game span with 90+ points, a 4-game span with 30+ rebounds, 20+ assists, 60% field goal percentage on 60+ field goal attempts, and a 4-game span with 0 fouls with 100+ minutes played. That man is the myth, the legend, AJ Dybantsa. He did it all in the last 4 games. I don't know if we're appreciating enough what AJ means to the BYU basketball program right now. Now, it was a huge, huge recruiting coup when BYU got him to commit to BYU. Because remember, there's so many people out there. Why would he pick BYU? What's BYU doing? And they're just paying him to be there. To AJ's credit, he is bought in to the culture of BYU. You can tell he is, from all accounts, a phenomenal teammate. He likes to play within the framework of what BYU's system runs. He's not looking to take over every single game. There have been games he has done that. Look at that Clemson game, for example. That second half was just a maestro performance. Like, wow, what an impressive display that young man put on. But we're watching one of the all-timers in BYU basketball history, and the crazy thing, he's only going to be here for 1 year because he is going to be, at worst, a top 5 at worst pick next year in the NBA draft, just on potential alone. And the nice part is, it's not just potential. As Kevin Young likes to say, it's not hypothetical, it's legit. The production is there. And we are watching, as Jordan pointed out and as OptaStats pointed out, a singular run in basketball history. Now, could you quibble with the fact that in basketball, officiating obviously is subjective and he could have had a foul called him here and there? Yes, but watch how AJ's playing right now. He's playing clean basketball. And by the way, it's not that he's just like coasting on defense. He's getting after it on defense. That steal and dunk the other night in the Pacific game, what an impressive play it was. Got a long arm, pokes the ball out, takes it the other way, and just a tomahawk jam on the other end, showing off his two-way ability. So, yeah, while I question why TNT in their right minds is picking an ACU Abilene Christian matchup against BYU to broadcast it, I think it's more for the fact that they understand that AJ draws eyeballs, and him being a potential top 5 pick. And I know that TNT, they no longer have the NBA rights, but they're not that far removed from being in the NBA world, and they know what star power does for ratings when it comes to basketball. And I think that's why they're going to highlight AJ prominently in this game. I'm sure his dad, Ace, will be featured. Richie Saunders, Rob Wright, insert any other player on BYU's roster. There's a lot to highlight, and I'm looking forward to seeing it highlighted because I fully expect this game to get out of hand very quickly, and it could be a 20-point lead at halftime for BYU and could end up being a 40-point beatdown. But all the same, it allows AJ and company to show off what they're capable of and show off to a national audience what BYU basketball is all about. I love the fact that Grant Hill is going to be in town because Grant, he was if you didn't know anything about the history of Grant Hill, he was a top shelf recruit in his own right, had a great career at Duke. I'm a child of the 90s. Trust me, I was drinking Sprite because Grant Hill was drinking Sprite. I was all in with Grant Hill as a youngster. I thought he was going to be like kind of the next big thing in the NBA. And it looked like for a time that was going to be the case. And then ankle injuries and the like ultimately cost him that, if I recall correctly. It might have been a knee also. But Grant Hill, he's become an incredible broadcaster. And Andy Katz, he's told the story of college basketball for literally decades. So it is cool to have guys like that. They're going to be on campus highlighting this, not to mention the fact that it shows what Kevin Young and just what he's done at BYU has raised the profile that a network like TNT says, you know what? Yeah, we want to go to BYU. We get that this game's probably going to be a one-sided affair, but it is still an opportunity for us to draw some eyeballs. And I am also genuinely curious because in this day and age, people like to talk about ratings a lot. How much would a game on TNT, what will it rate? What will BYU draw eyeballs wise? I'm very curious to see what we see in the aftermath of this as well. And you hope it has a positive outcome for all parties, but it's still cool to have those guys on campus. And Brian Anderson, you may not know his name, but you know his voice. He is a veteran broadcaster, one of my personal favorites for what it's worth, and looking forward to seeing them kind of telling the story of BYU basketball as this game plays out tonight. 7:30 Mountain Time on TNT. Looking forward to it. Now, could I have hoped for, like a inside college basketball instead of inside the NBA from Chuck and Shaq and those guys? Yeah, that would have been cool, but they're locked in with ESPN and the NBA still. So we can hope, but it's cool to have TNT broadcasting this game all the same. All right, coming up next, we're going to finish up today's show with some of your questions. You guys sent them in last week, had some snafus that didn't allow me to address them then, so we're going to get to them next. Finish up the week on the podcast next with your questions right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears every single month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account actually don't match the numbers in your head of what you thought you had in that account. Rocket Money helps you get that clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances. And I think all of us this time of year, when it comes to the holidays, can use a little extra of that because managing money should not just feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting so you can save more and stress less. They find subscriptions you may have signed up for, you completely forgot about, and you're still paying for them. They help you clean them up quickly. The best part is it automatically builds budgets based on your past spending, helps you keep track without overthinking it. The bill alerts and spending notifications help you catch small things before turn into big expenses. And having an app that finds good times to save each month, helping you stay consistent with your financial goals and actually put some money away for a rainy day. Take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions today with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. One more time, just to get it ingrained in your head. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. I'm going to do a little public shout out to my youngest brother, Grant. Just graduated from BYU, Idaho. I was up there in Rexburg to celebrate with him. And the best part is it's cool to see guys, and speaking to my younger brother, Grant, who when I was home off of my mission, he was still a young pup. And It's crazy to think that now he's going to be like an adult and, off into the real world. But I want to give him a shout out. I know that a lot of his coworkers up at BYU Idaho reportedly listen to this podcast. So shout out to all of you who, I don't know all your names, but I hear from Grant that you guys enjoy the show. So big shout out to Grant on graduating, and proud of you, bud. Really cool to see you doing big things in life, and obviously fun to celebrate with you, your graduation. All right. So that being said, let's talk about what you want to talk about as you round out this week in the show on Locked On Cougars, and some questions that came in last week. And any of you know what happened last week. I had a little bit of a snafu. It felt like a cavalcade of different things came together. I didn't get a Friday edition of the show done. So let's get to this conversation that you wanted to have. We'll start off with Mandy Jones. She had a great question. It says, with BYU's roster leaning into the Provo identity, speaking of the capital PRO, frequent departures to the pros means our squads will look very different year to year. What gaps does this churn create? Do you see us, speaking of BYU, succeeding with a potentially high level of turnover, or do you end up fighting to keep players longer? I think, Mandy, in this day and age, it's just a part of what college basketball has become, because there's a lot of one and done guys, as we mentioned, AJ Dybantsa and the like, but there's also guys who you would like to think are what you call program guys who are going to stick around for 2, 3, 4 years. But also with NIL in the mix, revenue share, I think the transient nature of rosters literally year to year are just a part of what it's going to be. And I think Kevin Young embraces it fully. He talks about roster construction as if he's doing it on a year-by-year basis. They target specific guys in the portal that they think fit their model of what they're looking at roster-wise for BYU, and that's how they're going to go about building this roster every single year. Yeah, it is going to look different literally every single season, as so long as Kevin Young is in Provo, Utah, and maybe even beyond that with this current iteration of college sports. But yeah, you do have to expect that so long as they keep recruiting high-level players and understand that the way that Kevin is going about this is a very analytical approach, I think that the proof is in the pudding that he knows what he's doing, and I trust him to take care of it so long as he is in Provo, Utah, because I do think the NBA will come calling before long. If it already did this past offseason, but those calls are going to get louder and louder, it feels like, the more success he has. All right, Brian, our good friend 49er Coug. Will Farron was Nels last year. This year, it seems like he's had the yips. Not a severe case, but he has not been as consistent. Does he make it to the league, speaking of the NFL? I thought that Will was a lock to go to the NFL and get a crack at it. Now, with his issues this year, particularly between 40 and 49 yards, that will be of concern for NFL teams, but it does not mean that he couldn't make it. If he gets his head on straight, makes it into a camp, I look at the Ryan Rico story. Remember, Ryan was an undrafted free agent with the Cincinnati Bengals. They had their, I think, presumed starting punter get injured. They brought him in, and Ryan Rico just became an absolute sensation, and he's now got a multi-year contract with the Cincinnati Bengals as a result. That's kind of the same process I think Will Farron's going to have to follow here. He's not going to get drafted. Very few kickers do. And in fact, when you get drafted as a kicker, it's actually kind of a mark against you, it feels like, when it comes to fan bases. But I do think that Will get his chance in the NFL, but he will have to make the most of it and obviously prove that this year was an anomaly, whereas 2024 is what you would expect more from him. Brandon asking, too early prediction for next football season's record. Schedule looks favorable. Well, we talked about the Cal situation yesterday, Brandon. I would like to think BYU is going to kind of just keep rolling how they have, but every season has its own, kind of feel to it, and injuries and the like can play into it. But the way BYU's been building the past 2 years, who's to say they can't win 10-plus games again next year and be right there in the mix in the college football playoff, if not competing for the Big 12 title? That's kind of the level of expectation that BYU has right now. And as you mentioned, the schedule does look fairly favorable. So, yeah, I think you can have high expectations for BYU, but we'll get it more into that as the offseason continues here. Let's see. Any chance that Bear leaves BYU from Jeremy? I would doubt it, but you can never count it out, Jeremy. I do think that Bear has enjoyed his time in Provo. He's already transferred once. He's a starting quarterback at a Power 4 level. He just led BYU to the Big 12 championship game, right to the edge of the playoff. What more could you want? More money? Okay, sure, but I think the situation that he finds himself in is pretty idealistic, and he's a starting quarterback as a true freshman, could find himself on the fast track to the NFL if he continues on the trajectory he's on. Yeah, I would be hard pressed. I think he's going to leave BYU at this point, but in this day and age of college sports, who can say, you can never say never, I guess, in that circumstance. Zach, who will have the better transfer portal haul, BYU or Utah? Well, I'm going to be the homer and say BYU, because I know that Utah's crowing about the fact that they have this new private equity deal, but that private equity deal is not reportedly going to be done until first quarter 2026. So after the portal window will have opened and closed, in theory, that it will be signed. And then ultimately, they're saying $500 million. That's not $500 million straight up front. It's going to take time to raise that money. So I think BYU, considering they have the funds at hand already, I'm not saying that Utah doesn't have funds, but I expect BYU will have a better transfer portal haul, because they should, in theory, be ahead of the 8 ball when it comes to Utah in that circumstance. Let's see. Other questions real quick before we wrap it up here. I want to make sure that I get as many in as I can. Good one here from Dig and Brigham. I love my Cougs and really enjoy watching them in the NFL. What player on BYU's current roster do you think will have the best NFL career? It's a great question. And I'm going to go, okay, I know a lot of people think that Isaiah Glasker is kind of the prototype of what you want in an NFL linebacker. Well, I'm telling you, his counterpart, Jack Kelly, I'm excited to see Jack in the league. I think he has got all the potential to be, I think Isaiah can do it too. It can be two of the next big linebackers coming out of BYU into the pros. But I'm going to say Jack Kelly, I think, is going to be the best, because his closing ability, his ability to play both in space as well as rushing the passer and in the run game, I think he's the complete package as a linebacker, whereas you kind of look at the prototype, 6'5", 240 for Isaiah Glasker, and I expect Isaiah to be very, very good at the NFL level. I think Jack Kelly, man, he could be really, really special. Let's see, Brett, if LJ were to return next year, would BYU be favored to win the Big 12, and where would they be ranked to start the season? I think they would be in the conversation for the Big 12 title. I fully expect that Texas Tech will be picked as the repeat favorites. That's personal opinion on the matter. But BYU is probably, second or third, depending on how the offseason goes. And, well, BYU the last two off seasons hasn't been ranked going into the season, but I would like to think that this year the voters will wise up. And I will say BYU will check in somewhere between 15 to 20. That's where I think those, that is mentioned, as LJ stays, because that obviously is a big conversation there. So yeah, there you go. Some questions, some answers. And this is, by the way, something we're going to do more of as we continue through the offseason, more and more of these, letting you guys kind of have your questions answered on the podcast. A couple other questions that came in. My window just closed. Okay. Well, I think we'll run out of time regardless. So as always, thank you for all of your questions, and please continue to send them in. Even if I don't call for them, if you want to send me using the hashtag AskLOC, stands for Ask Locked On Cougars on social media, please do so. Would love to address those questions and have more interaction with those of you on social media and the like. And as always, we're going to have some special editions, as all access editions for our insider group members, and the all access club tier will have exclusive podcasts, which will have their own Q&A sessions as well. So just another plug if you want to join the Everydayer Club, which, by the way, I think is going to be a really, really fun thing. Now, I'm speaking as the guy who's running it, but hey, it's still a lot of fun. So as always, thank you once again for tuning into Locked On Cougars. Coming up this weekend, we'll be tracking how the college football playoff rolls out. And then obviously come Monday, it's game week. Yes, it is Christmas, obviously, next week. And we will probably, we're not going to do a show on Christmas for sure. We'll see if we do one on Christmas Eve, but I will have ones for you guys Monday and Tuesday, as well as Friday ahead of the game. We'll have a crossover edition with Locked On Georgia Tech at some point in there as well. So as always, thank you for all your support. So please subscribe and follow the show so you can get all the latest episodes. And also check us out on social media, Locked On Cougars on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or you can follow my personal X/Twitter account at Jacob C. Hatch. And by the way, if you need a last minute gift, because Christmas is coming up, or other people are bugging what you want, make it easy. Ask for a subscription to the Everydayer Club. It's ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through Locked On Cougars at Supercast, LockedOnCougars.supercast.com. Once again, LockedOnCougars.supercast.com. So as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen today, and now making your second listen. Our friends over the Locked On College Football Podcast, Spencer McLaughlin, absolutely killing it with Locked On CFB. Check that out. And as always, come back and be an everydayer every single day right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.